Hi, my name is Beth and I'm the sewing pattern designer and blogger at Sew DIY. In today's video, I'm going to talk about pre-washing your fabric. If you're new to sewing, then pre-washing might be a new concept to you, but it's exactly what it sounds like. It means you wash your fabric before you use it. So before you cut it out and sew it into a garment, you're going to want to wash your fabric. And there are a couple of reasons why you want to do this. The first reason is shrinkage. So when you wash your fabric for the first time, it can shrink, and it can shrink a significant amount, and you don't want that to happen to your finished garment because that's gonna be a bummer. So you want to wash your fabric because of shrinkage, and then also because of excess dye or chemicals that are in your fabric. So after you wash your fabric, you will get rid of any stiffening chemicals, and you'll be able to see the drape of the fabric a lot better. And also, if there's excess dye in the fabric, then when you release that, it's less likely that that dye is going to rub off onto other clothing or other parts of your garment. So it's really important to also wash that fabric in kind of a controlled environment. So even when you're pre-washing, make sure that you wash your black fabrics separate from your red or your white or lighter colored fabrics. Don't throw them all in together because they're going to have a lot of excess dye. I think there's cat hair. All right, that was a bonus tip, but now I have my 6 top tips about pre-washing fabric. So the first tip is to wash your fabric according to fiber content. Now, every fabric is made out of fibers such as linen, cotton, rayon, wool, silk, and all of those different fibers react differently to washing practices. So try to figure out what kind of fibers are in your fabric and then decide how you want to pre-wash it. I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail on the different methods, but I will put some links in my blog post that I will link to down below that will help you decide what method you want to use to pre-wash your fabric. And just as a bonus, my favorite way to pre-wash in general is to do cold water cycle and then hang dry, or just hand wash it for delicate fabrics like silk. And that leads us into tip number 2, which is to pre-wash your fabric using the same method that you plan to use to wash your garment. So if you are going to hand wash your garment all the time, like if it's a silk camisole or something, then I would try pre-washing your fabric, or not try, just do pre-wash your fabric. If you are going to be throwing those pants into the washing machine and the dryer, then you should put your fabric into the washing machine and the dryer, because then you won't get any surprises when you wash your garment for the first time. So tip number 3 is that when you go to pre-wash your fabric, you want to finish the raw edge. So if you just throw your big yardage of fabric into the washing machine and you have this raw edge, it can fray a lot. You could use, or you could lose an inch or 2, maybe probably not 2 inches, but you could lose a significant amount of fabric because it'll just fray away. And it could also potentially mess up your washing machine if all those threads get into the system. So it's really important and just saves you a lot of time if you finish that edge. So you could finish the edge on a serger, or one thing that I like to do is fold the raw edge together and run it through my sewing machine with a zigzag stitch. And it's a great way to use up random colors of bobbin thread, or just I'm never going to use this neon orange thread again, so I'll use it for this and just zigzag those edges together. And then that zigzag stitch is really easy to just pull out after it's been washed, and you're going to have minimal to no fraying when it's washed. So tip number 4 is you can pre-wash just a swatch of your fabric. If you're not sure how your fabric is going to react to a certain method of washing, then you can just cut a swatch, finish those edges and wash that swatch. So for example, if you have some silk and the fabric recommendations say to dry clean, maybe you actually want to hand wash it. You can just test it out and see how it reacts. See if like all the colors bleed out or if the texture changes. Pre-washing a swatch is also a good way to test how much your fabric is going to shrink. So for example, you would cut a swatch that's 10 inches by 10 inches, make a note of how big it was, wash it, and then measure it again to see how much it shrinks. So tip number 5 is to always pre-wash your fabric as soon as you bring it home and before you store it away. I've been using this method for years and it's really great because I know that anything that is in my stash is ready to go. It's been washed and I can just pull it out and start cutting and sewing right away. But if I had a stash that was full of like some fabrics that were washed and some fabrics that weren't washed, then every time I would look in there, it would be a big question mark and I couldn't get to sewing right away, which is what I want to do. So just make a good habit of always washing your fabrics right away before you store them. And tip number 6 is related to this. And if you are a stash rock star and you have some sort of record or digital record about all of your fabrics, congratulations. It's much better than me. But if you have some sort of digital record of your stash, I recommend also writing in there how you pre-washed your fabric. Because the big problem with me is I know that I pre-washed everything, but I don't always remember how I pre-washed it. So that can be a problem. Recently I made a dress and the first time I washed the dress, it shrunk probably 2 inches. And I think it's because when I pre-washed, I hand washed the fabric, but then I washed the garment in the machine and now it's a lot shorter. So make a note of how you pre-wash if you are a stash recording rock star. One of these days I want to get my stash that organized, but it's just like too big to handle. Anyway, I really hope that you found these pre-washing tips helpful. Make sure to check out the blog post for more resources and let me know in the comments if you have any questions or ideas for future videos. And if you haven't already, I'd really appreciate it if you hit the subscribe button and then hit the little bell to be notified whenever I release a new video. Happy sewing!